بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين أما بعد. My dear respected brothers, Jazakallah, I see many of us are forward. If anyone doesn't have a disability, please come forward and fill the lines. Khutbah is part of the salah, so you do not lean against the wall unless you have a physical disability, in which case you're forgiven. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has gathered and guided us up to this most auspicious moment where we have in fact developed the deepest wisdom available to all mankind. And that is the wisdom to put our forehead on the ground in sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. I bear witness and testify, if it is my last permitted act by Almighty Allah, that there is no one worthy of our worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one worthy of our praise, our devotion, our guidance except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is, 1400 years ago, a man, a human being, named Muhammad ibn Abdullah, came to this earth and was blessed with the final perfect revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mankind, which we know today as the Holy Quran, a book in which there is no deviation, no error, no departure from the truth. As to what follows. And the opening words of Surah Al-Baqarah, the opening words, but in the second section, I apologize, of Surah Al-Baqarah, we understand and are given the reason for the creation of man. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathers the angels around and He says, behold, He says to the angels, I have created a vicegerent here on earth. Vicegerent is a very old English word. The most obvious translation of vicegerent into Arabic that you would recognize more is Khalifa, representative. It's not quite ruler, it is representative. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He announces the creation of man to the angels, says that He has created a representative on earth. This is a very deep honor, which even the angels themselves could not understand or comprehend. The angels asked more to understand because they couldn't understand it. Ya Allah, will Thou create one who makes mischief on this earth? Because man was endowed with choice. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I know what you know not. So man was given a very high honor with his creation, as is accorded in the Holy Quran. And that honor was to represent Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here on earth. This is the highest possible honor that the Creator can give to the created. And so it is that what Islam represents is the perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's gift to mankind. Islam represents the roadmap, the charter, the code of conduct by which a man can truly be said to represent Almighty God here on earth. And this is a high honor that we are not deserving of unless we follow and submit ourselves totally to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the subject of this khutbah, the responsibility of khilafat under Islam. For we see recently that there are many parts of the Muslim world that have been undergoing some form of what we would call revolution. We see that in Egypt, for example, Hosni Mubarak was overthrown. In Pakistan, for example, we see that there was some form of election and Mr. 10% was taken out of power. In Tunisia, a brother set himself on fire to change the regime that was there. In Libya, in Syria, in Bahrain, we see uprising and tumult. And even in Afghanistan, in spite of the efforts of the combined world, we see that there probably is some kind of change going on there. So in all sectors of the Muslim world, we see upheaval, we see change. And we come back to the central question of leadership, which is most closely associated in the minds of the Muslims with the Khulafa Rashidun, or the rightly guided caliphs. But this will not be a khutbah about Abu Bakr Siddiq, about Umar Khattab, about Uthman bin Affan, or Ali ibn Abu Talib, who are the greatest Muslims after, of course, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam of all time. Although these Muslims are honorable beyond reproach and cannot be criticized according to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this khutbah is not about those shining lights of the Muslim Ummah. This khutbah is instead about what I call the rule of 25, and why it is that we have not had a similar level of khilafah ever since the original four. And the sad truth and the answer to this question should occupy every Muslim's mind. Why are our leaders today so bad, to speak plainly and clearly? Why are they so incompetent? Why can a country like Mali, which is one of the poorest in the world, be one of the largest exporters of gold in the world? Why can a country like Afghanistan have $1 trillion in resources and have so many people who have no literacy, no food, no water, no facilities? How can a country like Pakistan produce hundreds and thousands of doctors and the Nobel-winning scientists and even build a nuclear bomb and still not be able to keep the lights on a regular basis in a major city? How can a country like Egypt, which financed the world's first university, Al-Azhar, have the situation where it is dependent on money from the outside in order to even provide its people with bread. How can the bar for Muslim leadership be so low? How can the likes of Saddam Hussein be people that have ruled in the Muslim world, or Bashar al-Assad, or for that matter Zardari in Pakistan, to name specific names? How can these kinds of people rule Muslim people successfully, so-called, over time? And the answer is, we have lost understanding of our own responsibility towards Khilafah. You cannot have a Khalifa unless you have people that are able to be Khalifa. And unless that pool is very, very, very deep, what rises from the top of that ocean will be very, very shallow. You see, when the water in a river is very shallow and it's almost dry, when you put your foot in that water, very close to the bottom is mud. But when you put your foot into the ocean and you pull your foot out, it is clean. And so it is with the quality of Muslim leadership, is that the pool in the society is not there. So I'm going to spend this entire khutbah on a very simple and very complicated topic, which is how everybody can in fact be some form of Khalifa. What do I mean by this? The central characteristic of leadership in Islam is twofold. One is merit, what you might call today technical skill. Not anyone can just be a leader if they have no understanding of what it is that they're doing. You will not take instruction in quantum physics from a man who can't add 1 + 1 is 2. So there is a certain requirement for technical skill for a man to be acknowledged by his peers as being better than they are in an area. We refer to the process of this as shura. Shura is where a group of people who are competent, who are respected, who understand an area, say from among us, one person is better, one person is stronger, one person is more knowledgeable. If you have a group of 25 doctors who are among the best and most respected doctors in the world, and they say this one doctor will speak for us, you have shura. But if you have 25 people who just collected off the street, 7,000 pounds overweight, one of whom drug addicted, the other of whom unable to walk, the third of whom has never read a medical textbook and can't point out where the human heart is, you have no shura. And so it is that a group of people must come forward when one aspect of leadership in Islam is technical skill, competence, understanding, respect from one's peers for the ability to do something and get something done. This is one aspect. This is not the only aspect. The second aspect and the most important aspect of leadership is taqwa, character. Fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Living as though one sees Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right in front of him every day. When you combine taqwa with technical skill, you have Islamic leadership. Because what the taqwa does is it takes the technical skill and it humbles it so that it doesn't take advantage or provide dhulm or oppression over other people. So a man who is a great fighter but has no taqwa will tend to fight with everybody around him and scare them because of his fists. A man who has great wealth but no taqwa will always intimidate people because he uses money as his currency to solve problems. A man who is a great speaker will always out-talk everybody around him if taqwa is not there to restrain his tongue to consider the best purposes of the people. So in all things in Islam, what differentiates Muslim leadership from other forms of leadership is the combination of technical skill and taqwa. And what we have lacked in our society is we have lacked respect for technical skill. So anybody claims to be the leader regardless of if he has a grade 2 education. We have also lost complete respect for taqwa, which is the character of the person who the Muslims are asked to trust. If Muslims pledge their allegiance or do not resist someone who lacks taqwa when he rules them, it is inevitable that they will be in the dust. And this has been the story of our lives and our grandparents' lives. We accepted leadership from people who lacked faith, who lacked the realization that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was watching them. So let me give you a simple example. I have spoken on this minbar many, many times about the fact that just like Afghanistan, or just like Mali, or just like Pakistan, that in this city of Toronto alone, there's over $1 billion in assets among the Muslim community. I have said this many times. But what am I really saying? What I'm really saying is if there was a shura of 25 business people who had made at least $10, $15 million in net worth, who opened their books to all of the other community to inspect and examine, who paid their taxes, we would say we had a shura of 25 people who were technically competent at business. But before we all gave those people our money and allowed them to invest in other businesses so that we could grow, we would have to see taqwa in these people as well. And we would have to say, can we find 25 people in this community, in the city of Toronto, who could build massive wealth, massive transparency, and also show up at the mosque for Fajr prayers and all the 5 daily prayers for 1 year in a row? Taqwa doesn't lie. If they're out late at night doing God knows what, they won't make it in the masjid for Fajr. Many of us say, okay, Fajr alone is difficult, but Fajr in the mosque, you have to leave even earlier. And so it is that from a simple test, we can develop companionship and a simple barometer of skill and a simple barometer of taqwa at the same time. But if we had in our minds through this taqwa the idea that the purpose of our making money is not only for us to make money, but for every Muslim to have a place where he could deposit his wealth in trust and know that it would grow because it was in the hands of one more capable than he was, then you begin to have khilafat in the business sense. Similarly in the medical sense, who are the healthiest people in the society as well as the most technically skilled? Who are the people that people travel all over the world to come see in this community from a healthcare point of view? Can you get 25 of them? Can you get them to agree that one is the most knowledgeable? Can that person advise the ummah in this city about how to eat, how to exercise, what to take, what not to take, what drugs are safe, which are not? And is that person also coming to the mosque 5 times a day and has fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so his ego and his knowledge are subordinated to something else? What about education? Can we get 25 people, and I know we can, who get close to a perfect score on the graduate record exam or the LSAT or the MCAT, who have the highest marks in terms of their doctoral thesis or their high school at every level? Can we form a shura of these people, and can they set the way that we educate other people? Because part of shura and part of teaching is companionship and hadith. And Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he was knowledgeable in something, taught his companions, and those companions taught other people. And so it is, we don't just learn from a book like the Holy Quran, we learn from action, which we call sunnah. In all things, it is possible for a rightly guided community that is serious to form the rule of 25, which is to find 25 people who are outstanding in an area, and to have those people know each other, work with each other, and nominate one from among them to speak on behalf of this area. And if you have the people from education, from health, from investment, in addition to the people who understand this deen from a deep religious point of view, speaking together constantly, you will find some version of a leader. And he will not be a Mr. 10%. He will not be a Hosni Mubarak, and he will definitely not be a Saddam Hussein. Because the lion cannot be led by the monkey. But you need a pride of lions in order for the monkey to run away. So that competence, skill, and taqwa together are brought forward in this community. I'm not saying this because I wish to lead anything, quite to the contrary. I would hope that this khutbah is sent to every single town and city in every part of the Muslim world. Why should the people of Egypt put their money in the Egyptian banking system when it is quite obvious that the banking system has produced no return for them? Why should the people of Pakistan do so, or in any other Muslim country? Why shouldn't the people put their money in the hands of people who are honest and successful at the same time? And believe me, those people exist anywhere where La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah is said. We have developed this idea that we can coexist with Jahiliyyah, that we can say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah in one hand, and at the other hand put our money in banks that do illegitimate things, trust our security to militaries that kill us, pay or don't pay taxes to governments that are illegitimate, and on it goes. What we have lost is this idea that we are responsible for governing ourselves. Wherever there are 3 Muslims, there is a Muslim ummah. Wherever there is a Muslim ummah, there is a responsibility in that ummah to declare a leader. And not for the leader to go running himself to say, I am the one, but rather for the leader to demonstrate by service and sacrifice and results that he is in fact technically competent and God-fearing in everything that he does. And when we have such leaders, because we have such followers driven to that objective, then in fact we have the basis for which leadership can come. If you put Abu Bakr Siddiq in charge of a country like Pakistan today, as God is my witness, I don't think he would be successful. Why? Not like it is right now. Because the civil service is corrupt, because the military is corrupt, because the police are corrupt, and in fact a man like Abu Bakr Siddiq would not lead people for more than 5 minutes if they were not prepared to follow La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So from top to bottom, everywhere that we are, we have said we have a Jahiliyyah system and we have Muslim people. And we try to fit the two of them together, and it has never worked. Instead, what we need to be doing is to be saying, in every area of life, who is best and who is God-fearing. And who are we to know and meet each other? I don't care if it's in medicine, I don't care if it's in physical fitness, I don't care if it's in education, I don't care if it's in health. If you are a young person today, understand that you will never become great at what you do unless you find someone to be a role model, to follow, to learn from. And you might need 5 or 6. So start looking for those people. If you are a person who is mature and has achieved success in life, you will never achieve the full satisfaction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless you are now prepared to give back. If you have made the money that you need for yourself, start to look for the young people to mentor. Start to look for your colleagues who you can respect. Start to look for people in whom you can place your own excess money, to watch them develop in management, and people for whom you would manage money, even though you don't need it, so that they could take benefit of your knowledge. This is ummah, this is shura, and this is how we recover some form of khilafah. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I have created man to be my representative on earth, you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lacks genius and beauty and sophistication and order? Look at all his creation. Everything has a system, everything has logic, everything has merit, everything has a kind of transparency and eloquence to it. And we who are supposed to represent Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world, do we conduct ourselves with the beauty of a flower, the stability or longevity of a tree, the urgency of a river? These characteristics in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has handed us are signs. They are signs left by the master to his servants. To his servants to say, look at the nature of how I impose my will on this earth, and imitate from me, your creator, that you may do the same. Not so that you could be arrogant and strut in the land and take advantage of people, but rather no, so that you could make what was desert into a garden, what was an ocean into a farm and fish. And what you could make out of fire is something that, from something destructive to something that provided light and energy. The rule of 25. So who will be among the 25 in business? Who will be the 25 in education? Who will be the 25? Make niyyah today, inshallah, that you will be one of the 25 in whatever area Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed and led you to be. It doesn't matter what the area is, as you're starting to see, because all things are one. Knowledge is knowledge in different areas. But if the purpose of your knowledge is to find 24 other people who are as good, if not better than you are, and if your purpose is to come together and know these people so that you will provide for yourself and provide your skill to the community, then you have the beginning understanding of ummah. And this is why Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam took many years to explain Tawheed to the people before the Islamic State was established. Because he was building the connections between Muslim people so they would begin to understand what it was that their deeper responsibility was to each other and to the world. If I see 25 Muslims who understand business working together, why wouldn't we let non-Muslims leave their money with them if they are trustworthy? If I see 25 Muslims who understand the true way to take care of people's health and push that frontier forward, why wouldn't we let non-Muslim people see this way? If there are 25 Muslims who could devise a way for non-Muslims to buy a house without paying 4 times more in interest, why wouldn't we open this blessing to non-Muslim people as well? Are we saying that there would be more than 40 such groups in the city of Toronto? I don't think so. 25 times 40 is 1,000 people. Out of 100,000 Muslim families, we can't find 1,000? 1,000 in each area, spread out among different groups, to just get to know each other and challenge each other with both technical skill and taqwa? I don't think this is a very big ask. I think if you sat down and asked a Muslim person individually, name 10 Muslims who are good in the following areas, he would tell you. Name one who is the top of his class. Name one who is the best business person. Name one who is the best in terms of running a mechanic shop or a falafel restaurant. They would tell you quickly who these people are. But they don't talk to them, and their knowledge is left in a silo, not connected to other people. And those of us who live alone will die alone. This was what was said numerous times in the hadith of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So we have to take upon ourselves as Muslim men specifically the responsibility of Khilafat. I don't mean invading other people and bombing their homes like these guys in Finsbury and telling people that we have to wear beards down to our feet. And this is a mockery, a cartoon nature of what Muslim state is about. Muslim ideas are that when Muslims are together, there's an ummah. It's not about a flag. It's not about stamping people out. It's not about executing people or beheading them on video. This is nonsense. This is cartoon behavior. The notion of Muslim cooperation was to make life better for every place where Muslims live, for non-Muslims and Muslims alike. Make the water cleaner, make the streets cleaner, make the schools better, make the conduct of relationships and the manners between people better. But how are we supposed to do that unless we have a group of people who push each other towards excellence and who push each other towards taqwa? And I'll tell you a third thing that will be a very simple characteristic of how it is that you can decide whether these people are worthy of representing you in some form of shura. Ask your wives to ask their wives how they're treated. Because those are the people that watch them every single day, morning, noon, and night. You want a quick sense of somebody's character? Look at his wives and look at his children for his own behavior. Then you'll see how he behaves when he has the advantage over someone. Then you see what his manners and his respect and his language and his courtesy like. Then you'll know if prayers are mentioned in his house or not mentioned in his house, because you look to his personal conduct. You see, in the West they had this idea that a man could be technically competent and his personal life didn't matter. And they point to a guy like, for example, Bill Clinton, who was by all accounts a very bright individual, but whose personal treatment of his own wife left a lot to be desired. And so we saw that in the immediate short term, the benefits of what he did for his society were great, but in the long term they laid the seeds of disaster, because people without character will always sacrifice the long term for the short term. And so the same man who gave a great tech stock market also created the seeds of a housing bubble, because he put too much money into the marketplace, because he wanted his short-term election results to look good at the expense of his country. And I don't need to tell you about Bush that succeeded him later. So it is, we are always measuring people by two things, technical skill and taqwa, and that those two things together are the requirement of Khilafat. But if a Muslim man believes that Khilafat is not his responsibility, then he will allow Khilafat to flow to people who are not worthy of that. The Islamic concept of bay'ah is not that a man pledges to be a slave to another man, astaghfirullah, no. It is that a man cedes or gives up his right of leadership in exchange for one who leads better. And therefore the both of them will go closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who was spoken to by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who saw Sidratul Muntaha, who spoke to Angel Jibreel, when he asks Bedouins in the desert to pledge allegiance to him, take permission from them to pledge allegiance to him, who are you and I to tell any man how to live without his consent and cooperation, that we may serve each other together? When the greatest man in human history takes the advice of his companions and consults with them, who are you and I, or Hosni Mubarak, or Saddam Hussein, or Zia al-Haq, or any of these people? Who are they to take what Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not take for himself? Technical skill, taqwa, khilafat. This is the nature of leadership in Islam. Leadership is an obligation on every Muslim, not one. Excellence is an obligation on every Muslim, not just one. It doesn't mean you have to be excellent in everything, although you should try. What it means is that you should strive for excellence in that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided you to be excellent in. Some of our brothers, mashallah, are great basketball players. Some of them are great teachers. Some of them are great cooks. Some of them are great doctors. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put within you something that has guided you to that moment. Subhanallah, praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your blessing. But you have to use that blessing. You have to find other people with that blessing. You have to aggregate. And if you aggregate into that, and you find other brothers with that, and your intention in your niyyah is not to be proud or to put yourself above the community because you have a skill, but rather to serve the community with the benefit of the knowledge you have, then the taqwa has begun to overcome the tyranny of your own nafs. Then your love of God has overcome your love in your skill. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you multiple times your skill. You know, when Uthman bin Affan, may Allah be pleased with him, was sent to Abyssinia, he was not there very long, because he came back because he heard a rumor that the Quraysh had accepted Islam. So he came back to be with the people. But when he was there in Abyssinia for a very short time, he saw that the people there were importing skins for leather. That the people of Abyssinia, which was a Christian country, were tanning the hides, but paying a very high rate for their ability to do so, and then selling those hides as traders. So they were middlemen rather than manufacturers. Uthman was not there very long, and he already taught the people of Abyssinia right away how to grow their own animals for livestock so that they would not be dependent on outside people, and they could in fact increase their profits from the leather trade. The man had just escaped persecution from another country, and he's not even in the country for a very long period of time, and the first thing he does is he teaches everybody in the new country that he's in, which was not a Muslim country, how to get rich. Is it any wonder that the scholars say that the king of Abyssinia, in noticing the behavior of these 10 or 15 Muslim people, secretly accepted Islam, although he never met Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because of the character of people that would take something that they knew, that they made money off, and share it instead with complete strangers, just as a gift for leaving them home. It's almost as though people gave the secret to the Intel microchip to some other completely different company and said, now you build them too. Because this is the difference between technical skill for the sake of technical skill and technical skill combined with fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One makes a man arrogant, so he says, no, I can build this and you will be at the bottom. Another says, no, if I know something, it is God who gave it to me, and God who will ask me what I did with this in the time that I had alive. And so it is with all the skills that we have. We have a responsibility of khilafat. The responsibility of khilafat is rooted not in arrogance or dhulm or oppression, but in shura or consensus. We need to challenge ourselves with people who have the same skills as we do and make each other better. And from among us, we need to have the humility to say that person is best. Because if that person truly has taqwa, he will never say it himself. When Uthman and Ali were in the council appointed by Hazrat Umar, in terms of nominating a successor, Ali nominated Uthman. Uthman nominated Ali. This is the nature of the companions of Rasulullah in terms of who should succeed us, till the matter had to go to some form of arbitration. When Abu Bakr Siddiq became the Khalifa, many of the people had suggested Umar. But Umar rushed to Abu Bakr Siddiq to pledge allegiance to him before anybody could think about the matter too much. People were so afraid of Umar, they pledged allegiance to Abu Bakr. Because we're not the people that go and seek fame and power and all these things. We're the people that seek to serve. And from among the people who serve, the one who serves the most is the one who will gain the respect of his peers. So I speak to you today about what I call the law of 25, which is the niyat that should be made in this masjid today, that says that anywhere where there are Muslim people, 25 of them should decide in one area that they will be the best they can be and meet each other and push each other to excellence and prayer and taqwa and character. Doesn't matter what the area, 25 in business, 25 in medicine, 25 in education, 25 in health, 25 in agriculture, doesn't matter where. They're not voted in by anybody, they just seek each other. And if they become more and more successful, more and more people will come to them. And if they honor their promise to serve the other people, they will be respected. You have 10, 15 of these groups of 25 in different areas, and it doesn't matter who rules you, because whoever rules you will not be a clown. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us, have mercy on us, and allow us to impose the rule of 25. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Mursaleen, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. You know, all of these khutbahs, we put them on YouTube. You cannot see my face because it is irrelevant. We never declare my name because it is also irrelevant. If I speak the truth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cause this to be disseminated. If I make a mistake, people will disregard. This is not about posters on a wall 50 foot high to say someone is your leader or this. This is nonsense. The point in Islam of knowledge is to spread, to see the betterment of humanity. If you see merit in this, you're not spreading my name or anybody else's name. Spread this message. It's on YouTube. The brother will tell you how to find it. You spread this message to all around the Muslim world. Translate it, write it down, do whatever you want. It is time that Muslim people began to assume their true identities, which are leaders, role models, and reflections of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's light upon this world. That light comes in the form of being good at something, and at the same time being of very high character. Both at the same time. Both at the same time. It's not enough to be a very high character, to pray at home, 50 salat and 100 tahajjud, but to be on welfare. This is not enough. This is not manhood. This is not khilafat in Islam. It's not enough to be an unbelievable cardiac surgeon and to drink wine at the same time and to mingle with people so that the other cardiac surgeons say, oh wow, you're a very cultured and sophisticated guy. Or to be a great writer and then sit around and hang around and do God knows what with all kinds of people of loose morals and say, yes, now I'm a popular writer. Or to become a writer and slander Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in one of your books, because this is the way of the people that are lost. Ours is a unique combination of character and excellence. Character and excellence, character and excellence. This was the nature of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You think when he ran the business for Khadija that it was bankrupt? No, it grew. You think Abu Bakr Siddiq was lousy at his work? No, he was brilliant at it. You think Umar bin Khattab has ever had anyone in the world that knew how to run an empire the way he did? Never happened. Uthman bin Affan was one of the wealthiest men in the world at the time that he accepted Islam. Muslims weren't just Muslims because they were good at praying. They were good at praying and they were good at something else. They were good at charity and they were good at something else. They were good looking and they were good at something else. Islam didn't spread just because we were the religious people. Islam spread because we were the religious people and we were the cool people at the same time. We made being religious cool. Because people looked around at all the other things that they had been presented and they said, I don't want to live that way. And that's how Islam spread. It wasn't a bunch of guys running around with swords in the middle of the night saying, say la ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, I cut your throat. That's not how Islam spread. Islam spread because people looked at the alternatives and said, I don't want to live like that. I want to be like him. You and I are here as Muslims because somebody said, I want to be like him. And isn't it our job now to be the kind of person that other people would say, I want to be like him? I want my daughters to marry somebody like that. I want my kids to grow up looking like somebody like that. I want my businesses to be run by somebody like that. I want my health advice and my education, my schooling to be run by somebody like that. I want to speak the way he speaks, feel the way he feels, and treat everybody as though they were made directly by the hand of God, because they were. That is the promise of Islam. That is the potential of Islam. And either we start living it or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create another people who will. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His